morning, everyone. My name is Leticia Alatorre, and I am the Assistant Operations Chief for the Treasurer and Tax Collector. I am part of Cohort 34, and my teammates and I have selected Project 15, providing county-wide support and best practices for county managers for telework success. We all had to change at a moment's notice, sitting together in an office to having virtual conversations on Teams, watching everyone in stadium seating. My team and I took a look into these changes and how we can do and improve these processes for managers. My team consists of Ganesh Agrawal, a Chief Physician of Internal Medicine for the Department of Health Services at High Desert. We also have Adrian Gragas, the Assistant County Counsel for the Office of the County Counsel, Graciela Martinez, a Head Deputy for the Public Defender of the Office of Public Defender, and Penelope Rodriguez, a Department Finance Manager for the Department of Beaches and Harbor. We would like to give special thanks to our departments for giving us the opportunity to be part of the Executive Leadership Development Program, DHR Lisa Garrett for helping put on the program, and most importantly to USC Price Team, Christina, Paul, Tommy, and all of our inspiring teachers who helped us enrich our managerial growth. Thank you all. Let me tell you a little bit about who we are. We are Team Time, the Telework Informatic and Mitigating Exposure Team. I'm sure you're all wondering, what does their logo stand for? You will find that our acronym is in the middle of our logo and housed in a home representing teleworking with a chat bubble that represents the sharing of information amongst managers. And you will see that we also have a red window representing insight and transparency, a white cross for the center of the window representing safety and health. On March 16th of 2020, the Board of Supervisors directed that all LA County buildings be closed to the public as a precautionary measure to prevent the spread of COVID-19. We as managers were expected to have all the answers to how to suddenly manage our staff from home, and many of us did not know where to find these resources that would help us get through this pandemic. Our objectives are to provide managers easily accessible centralized telework resources. We would like to make it easy for managers to find that one centralized place that they can find the telework resources needed to manage their section. We would also like to establish risk management best practices guidelines for managers. We have come to realize that teleworking from home is not exempt from the unique safety issues, which requires knowing the risk management best practices. And lastly, we would like to provide a Teams group for managers to help each other when they need to talk to somebody with similar experiences. This would be a place where one can ask the group, hey, what do you guys do with that employee that consistently shows up to a Teams meeting in their pajamas? Or any other type of question that might be pending. But we feel that this would be a great forum for managers to share thoughts and ideas. Los Angeles County is one of the most populous counties in the nation, with more than 10 million residents and one of the largest employers in Southern California, with over 100,000 employees. So what happens when one of the largest employers in Southern California has to close its buildings and swiftly roll out its long-standing but little known, underutilized telework program? To give you a little insight on what our telework numbers look like before COVID-19, we had 7,600 TeleReady County employees out of over 100,000 employees. That represents 7% of the county employees were ready to telework when the pandemic hit us in March of 2020. We all know that as managers, we had to suddenly have a game plan and figure out how to best get our team to telework at a moment's notice. In December of 2020, when the pandemic was at its peak, we see that most departments were at 70% and above for their teleworking. We also see our department heads letting us know that it was safer to be at home. But were we ready for this complete shutdown 9 months after its start? Would we continue to have these large numbers of teleworking? In April of this year, with vaccines being given at a much higher rate and the pandemic beginning to slow down a bit, we see that we still have 40,000 employees contributing to telework, as our departments have realized that this hybrid of working from home and office is something that many departments will continue to do. We know that there are various departments that have gone full-time teleworking and others that have moved to the hoteling model of reserving a workspace when they need to go into the office. With this in mind, what kind of resources are out there to help managers cope with this new normal? Penelope is going to provide us with some insight on our current telework resources.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Leticia. As everybody knows, telework during a pandemic created physical workspace challenges, psychological impacts, and distractions, and the realization that not everyone can work from home. Most supervisors and managers had little information on the telework program and weren't equipped to answer staff questions or concerns, much less prepared to deal with the psychological impacts and distractions that could have been affecting their staff. And most of us didn't exactly have the time to search for telework resources or even knew what telework resources the county had readily available. In our search of this topic, we found several telework program resources, such as the ones listed on the screen from the Department of Human Resources, including a telework wellness webinar series and other telework resources on different department websites related to risk management, stress management, and tips and tools for working from home. But none of these resources are centrally located and not all are easy to find. For example, on the next screen is the current location of DHR's Telework Resources. This is DHR's main homepage, which, as you can see, is very lovely, but it is focused mainly on career opportunities and is mainly accessed by employees when they are looking for promotional opportunities. In order to access the telework resources, employees have to click on the small For Employees box on the right-hand side of the page, which then takes you to a secondary page where you'll find the telework tile, and from there to a third page where the telework resources are actually located. And as you can see, these are the administrative telework resources, such as the actual telework policy, time card codes, agreement forms, etc. To access other available resources, such as the ones previously mentioned, staff would need to navigate through other department websites. So what's missing? Managers lack knowledge on how to deal with unique teleworking issues and learning to manage from home, and lack of interdepartmental cross-sector collaboration and easily accessible and centralized telework resources. This poor guy on the screen, most of us, we've probably felt like him at one point or another over the last year or so, exhausted, lost, in need of help, waving our white flag just in surrender. And some of us may still even feel that way at times. So in order to remedy this, we propose looking into the feasibility of creating a Microsoft Teams group for supervisors and managers to serve as a networking platform across all departments to give them the ability to share ideas and resources and pose questions or scenarios that they are facing related to telework that they can seek guidance for from their peers. And our proposed solution for centralized telework resources would involve adding a link to the mylacounty.gov website. Employees log onto this website twice a month to submit their time cards, or at least everybody that has computer access. And a telework link on the right-hand side under the home icon would be much more visible and accessible than having to search through department websites or various department websites. And the page could have links to all telework related resources that the county currently has available, from DHR, CEO risk management, and any other department that has telework related resources. And now Graciela will talk about the risk management best practices.
Okay, good morning. I'm Graciela Martinez, and I am the head deputy for the Immigration and Civil Commitment Units in the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office. And today I'm going to discuss risk management, best practices, and legal considerations as we lead our teams in a telework framework. In the next slide, we ask you, how do we telework and how do we manage when we are teleworking? Well, teleworking often requires us to reimagine our workspace, but it does not redefine our department's core mission. So therefore, as reflected in the operational needs slide that is coming up next, we need to ask ourselves, what is our core mission? What are our operational needs? Because it is our operational needs that determine who, when, why, and when people may be allowed to telework. Obviously, if our core mission is to provide medical services to patients that we are treating at the moment, we are unable to telework. Basically, the core mission does not provide the opportunity to telework. If our duty is to provide custodial services, and that's our department's protocol and need and mission, then that also is one where you need to be physically present. So always, I think the best way that we can best alleviate any sort of risk management in the best possible way is to always go back to our core mission in making decisions about who, when, where, and why does someone get to telework and why does somebody have to come into the office, which leads us to the next topic in our next screen about discriminatory practices. And I think it's sometimes difficult to remember that the only thing, what changes is our workspace. But the core mission does not change, nor do the laws that protect our employees, that protect us against unlawful discriminatory practices, whether they are real or perceived. So for example, you have at the very top, you have a woman who is sitting there all by herself. And the question is, where are her coworkers? Have they been allowed to telework? And why was she asked to come into the office? Are her duties substantially different that it requires her to come in order to comply with her job description? Well, that's an important consideration, because if her job description is the same as the other people who are allowed to telework, we need to reconsider why she's being called in and not the others. The other consideration, of course, is that we are entitled to a safe and healthy work environment absent of any sexual harassment or other type of retaliatory type of work. So if you have your virtual hand, or actually your actual hand through a virtual setting and you're saying stop, you need to consider that. Oftentimes what happens is that people become disinhibited when they are not physically present in a location. And so we need to be mindful that Title VII and County Policy of Equity, laws, regulations that state, local, federal, that apply equally regardless of where your workspace may be. Then finally, we need to also understand that people who may require a reasonable accommodation in order to telework must be provided that reasonable accommodation. And the operative would be reasonable, right? So always it's in the context of what is reasonable given your operational needs, given your core function. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to our group expert on liability. Adrian, take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Graciela. Good morning. My name is Adrian Gregas. I'm the Division Chief for General Litigation Division in the Office of the County Counsel. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about liability as well as a cost-benefit analysis. For the past 3 years, the county has received over 12,000 worker comp claims a year. For the past 3 years, this workers' compensation claims has cost the county over $400 million per year. This is versus litigation. Litigation against the county last year in 2020 amounted to only $150 million. And that includes all judgments, settlements, lawsuits against any of the 37 departments that the Office of the County Counsel defends. So now, with over 40,000 employees teleworking, risk management practices is very essential. So what is risk management? Risk management essentially is identifying the practice of identifying risks and taking potential steps to reduce that risk. And what I want to do is there's three main focuses in terms of risk management and in terms of teleworking. One is a safe home workplace. Two is confidentiality. And three is security. Let me talk about a little bit about confidentiality and everything else. The Board of Supervisors has established a policy that the county's informational assets are an essential and very sensitive information that we use in order to provide services to over 10 million citizens. And so it's very important to remember that when we're dealing with a telework environment, a county employee who suffers an injury while in a home office can receive the same type of workers' compensation benefits as an employee working from home. So what can a manager do? I'm just adjusting in terms of a safe home workplace. Employers, managers for the county need to emphasize three things. One, they need to monitor and adhere to the county's established telework policy. Two, managers must maintain and adhere to county guidelines for a safe home office. And this is to address ergonomics and potential trips and falls. And three, managers must maintain and adhere to set fixed hours and rest periods while an employee is working from home. And this is to establish whether or not an injury occurred in the coercion scope. And if you'll see on the next slide, we're talking about confidential and security issues. And this essentially is the list of confidential information that needs to be protected at all times. The one and most important thing in terms of confidentiality and security issues when these 40,000 county employees are working from home is the use of a virtual private network. Essentially, the county utilizes three types of virtual private networks in order to go into and to work from home into a county network. The county uses a virtual private network. There's a program called Zscaler, which is a multi-factor authentication, which a worker can go and work on a county network securely from home. And there's also another application called AppStream. So these three things in terms of a safe home environment, confidentiality and security issues are issues that need to be addressed in a risk management. And that's the most important thing in regards to making teleworking a success. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Ganesh now.
Thank you, Adrian, and thank you, Graciela, for walking us through legal considerations and potential exposures. Wow, $400 million in legal costs? That is mind-boggling. If we could somehow reduce the risk, let's say even 10%, that is whopping $40 million in saving we can use to further various county efforts to provide excellent customer service to our community. I'm sure Board of Supervisors would love that, and County CEO office would love that. I am Ganesh Agarwal, Chief Physician with Department of Health Services, and truly believe that we can achieve this by using our collective wisdom, learning from each other, and using resources already available within various county departments. Telework is here to stay and is a new norm in both public and private sectors. Therefore, as an organization, it is imperative that we discourage ad hoc practices and train our managers to help do their job right. I have several teleworking employees reporting to me, and I'm humbled here to admit that until now, I was not aware of such degree of expected vigilance on my part around ensuring safe workspace at home. Leticia mentioned that teleworking employees increased almost 6 times from pre-COVID era, which means we have a significant risk for exposure at hand. Therefore, it becomes critical that teleworking employees are properly educated on telework health, particularly in regards to preventing slip and fall injuries and injuries arising out of poor ergonomics, such as repeated motions and bad postures. As you will see on the next slide, these are some of the important tips for the managers to ensure compliance and mitigate risk of exposure. And Adrian already mentioned this, and this is nothing new. This is already available on the DHR website, and one can use those. As you will see also on the next slide, these are some of the key elements for teleworking employees to ensure safe workspace at home and attest to it. And I have put together in two different ways. One is key in preventing slip and fall injuries, and second is ergonomically compliant workspace. So for example, the top of the screen is at the eye level. There's a space to rest the arms while not keying. Your back is adequately supported at backrest. Your feet is on the floor. Likewise, preventing slip and fall injury, making sure there's no clutters there, no phone lines going around. You know, the chairs are secure. And if you have stairs, it's equipped with handrails. So on and so forth. All of those things are already there. So if you see on the next slide, you will see we should ensure employees are properly educated on telework health and document having completed such training to ensure compliance. There are do's and don'ts tips and links to training sessions already available. But just like Penelope mentioned, we need to centralize all these resources to help provide countywide support for managers and promote telework success. Thank you for being here and listening to our presentation. It has been a privilege to have you as audience today. And now it's time for questions.